Geek Hard presents Back Issue Bloodbath with your hosts, Andrew Young and Petula Neal.
The man without fear occasionally has some fears. He's got some regrets. He's got some doubts. And he got a little bit of denial as well. Welcome to Back Issue Bloodbath. I'm Andrew Young.
I'm Petula Neal.
And this week we are talking about, yes, once again, my favorite character, Daredevil, Matt Murdock, the man without fear. For somebody who hasn't had Superman or Batman or Spider-Man or even X-Men kind of levels of sales and popularity, he has had a number of great runs with top-notch creators. Right now is no different. Probably one of the best books, I'm going to say the best superhero book on the stands right now is the current Daredevil run written by Chip Zdarsky, and that's what we're going to talk about here today.
It's pretty good.
Yeah. Now, had you checked it out before I had suggested it?
I had not. I don't think I would have sought out Daredevil run if you hadn't suggested it, and I'm so glad you did.
Well, there you go. Fantastic. Written by Chip Zdarsky with art by Marco Cicchetto, which of course, Marco Cicchetto, a very talented artist who, every time that he's on a book, the book pops. I remember seeing his work on The Punisher with Greg Rucka back in 2013 or 2012 or whatever. He tells really good visual stories. He's very good at that. So there's the two of them. And of course, one of the main themes of this new Daredevil series is Matt Murdock contemplating on whether or not he should still be a hero. It's a common trope with Daredevil. It's one that's used a lot. But for some reason, it never feels old hat whenever a creator uses it. And I think it's because Matt Murdock's a character who thrives on emotional turmoil.
And has a pretty good day job. Let's remember a lot of other heroes, it's harder for them to hold down a day gig that demands some kind of regular appearance places. You know, you got your Peter Parker, his day gig basically is making money off his night gig.
Yeah.
You got other people who, Jessica Jones, a lot of her powers sort of fund her gig, but she will end up going on a tangent because of her powers.
And a lot of her problems in life actually stem from the fact of her day gig, because it usually ends up connecting to her night gig very quickly.
But actually having a job that, requires you to show up places like court and, be part of a system that's organized as well. His background, good church boy. A lot of that structure is counterintuitive to scampering around on rooftops at night.
That's always been the interesting thing about about Daredevil, is the duality of he's playing both sides of the coin. He believes in a justice system, no matter how flawed it is. He believes that every man deserves their day in court and deserves their just defense. But at night is basically breaking the law as a vigilante who is, giving out his own brand of justice. That's why it's always been kind of like a fun when he interacts with the Punisher, because the Punisher has very black and white views of what he's doing, whereas Daredevil, it's all a lot of gray. It's all a lot of justifying his method of operations in his own moral code.
And seeking absolution. A lot of time in the confessional booth.
Oh, yeah, no, totally. In the run previous to Chip Zdarsky's run, done by Charles Soule, we see Matt Murdock be a prosecuting attorney, a defense attorney, and even mayor of New York City. But now he's none of those things. He is now a parole officer. That's his day gig. His night gig, of course, is still being Daredevil. And things get set into motion in this story because Daredevil has a throwdown with some thugs and accidentally kills one of them and spends a good number of issues going through the stages of loss, sticking for a long period of time on denial.
Well, it's that arrogance of the superhero in that when they are maybe not operating at peak, still going out because they feel like they must.
Yeah.
And really the commission of the accidental murder happens during a crime that really didn't need to go. It was just, they were just knocking over a liquor store.
Yeah.
They weren't holding anyone hostage.
No.
They weren't going to shoot anyone
Wasn't
probably
a
if they
big
got
deal.
away. So that as well, it all just seems like just messy.
Exactly. And that's kind of with Matt Murdock as well. There's always the level of sanity in play. Is that Matt Murdock is pretty much a high-functioning madman. That's kind of where he lives. He's not on stable ground. He never really has been. But because he's not showing outward signs of being crazy to your John Q. public, he's not having to worry about getting locked up or anything like that. So in his mind, because in the past, there's been multiple stories in the past where something that looks small, that has the potential to ruin either Daredevil or Matt Murdock's life, is actually being controlled behind the scenes by Wilson Fisk. So because, again, Matt Murdock, not the sanest of people out there, this situation, instead of looking at the obvious of like, hey, I went a little bit too hard on this young thug who, this is probably maybe like the 10th time he's ever stole something or something like that. Instead of going, oh, well, I just hit him too hard and he hit the wall and he died. His neck got hit. He's like, that's exactly what would happen in this sort of situation. He goes, this is all a conspiracy set up by Wilson Fisk, and I've got to find a way to prove myself. And again, yes, anecdotal evidence shows that that's happened before, but common sense shows that no, in this situation, you made a wrong move. And so those first 5 issues is just him on this journey trying to find a way to prove himself just and that he'd been wronged against, where everyone around him, be it Foggy Nelson, be it the quote-unquote defenders, be it Spider-Man, are telling him, hey, you done fucked up. And like they're all very like understanding about it. It's like Luke Cage is like, we've all done this by accidentally before in our line of work.
And then he calls them all murderers. He's so judgy too.
Yeah.
Instead of sort of finding comfort from the fact that other heroes have had moments where they feel indirectly or directly responsible for the death of, in some cases, an innocent, in some cases, somebody who maybe was, committing some sort of act, but still, they're not judge, jury, and executioner except for Punisher. He can't take absolution from them, and yet he's constantly going back to the confessional booth looking for absolution because he knows he won't get it. He knows that a priest isn't going to say, yeah, it's okay that you go and beat people up. He wants to not be forgiven, and he's constantly seeking justification or absolution. So just another layer to his need for therapy.
It's interesting because the only person who seems to be like, hey, this is a good thing is somebody you brought up just now, the Punisher. Daredevil and the Punisher have had great stories together over the years. Some of the best Punisher moments have involved Daredevil. Some of the best Daredevil moments have involved Punisher. This issue so I believe it's like issue 4 of the story, kind of plays with the idea that Frank Castle looks at this and goes, you finally come over to my way of thinking. And the entire time that I've ever read Punisher and Daredevil together there's always been the thing of Frank Castle basically saying, Daredevil, you don't have the guts to go to the length that I do. It's interesting here to find that the reason why he's always been pushing that against Matt Murdock is not because he was trying to say, I'm better than you, Daredevil. It was him saying, you're better than me at this. If you came to my way of thinking, think of all the scum we could kill and erase from the planet. And that was kind of like, I never thought about it that way, that Frank Castle wanted him to see his way of thinking, not because he was trying to be like, fuck you and your righteousness, but be like, you could do so much. And it's kind of like, I never thought about it that way because, of course, Frank Castle, for as crazy and screw loose as Matt Murdock is, Frank Castle's, of course, 10 times crazier. But to him lay out his reasoning like that is something that I've never seen before in a comic.
And to have him be pushing Matt to use all of his skills and a projectile weapon to come for even him and say yes, and then you could really, really take over. It reminds me of a recent movie franchise also, but it's executed so much better because you understand. And here's the thing, Punisher's not always wrong, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, that's
Again,
the whole point
murder's
of Punisher.
Not great, but he's not wrong in this case where Matt's already done this thing. If we were to just go over to the Punisher side, imagine what they could do.
Yeah, it was a fun interaction there. One other thing that I love is because I'm a big fan, of course, 80s Marvel, which did a really good job of really telling the story of New York. You know, like you always felt like you were in New York, but like New York 1970s, 1980s, where it was all dirty. And it's like, I feel like that's always kind of stayed in the Marvel universe, whereas, of course, in real life, Disney came in and cleaned shit up, right? In this universe, it's always still been kind of like this scuzzy underbelly sort of thing. And this story arc does a really good job of not only representing Matt Murdock's motivations and how he thinks and everything like that through a new lens, but it also does a great job of showing off his connections to Marvel's New York and the way that him and the other street level heroes affect each other. And so much so that it comes down to Spider-Man has to be the one to kind of show up and say, listen, you're done. You can't be Daredevil anymore.
And not just because of the accidental murder, because he's off.
Yeah.
He keeps trying to work and not, take a break, go to rehab, hit the gym, do some physio.
Yeah.
Spider-Man's like, I should not have been able to creep up on you. Like, that's your one thing.
Yeah.
And you're not even good at that right now.
Yeah. And so it's like the total breakdown of this character, which it's always fun to see a character get broken down and then built back up, which is why after that issue, this is when the book was, as much as I enjoyed that first story arc, this is when the book really gets interesting for me, because it's the idea of Matt Murdock trying to, for the first time to ever actually try to figure out who he is in the world, what he can do without Daredevil, and how to become a better person. And because it's Matt Murdock, he fails at that third one repeatedly. Like, of course, there's the obvious, he's finally coming to terms, there's the obvious guilt where he's now trying to help the brother of the deceased liquor store robber. Yeah, here's the thing. Matt Murdock, for lack of a better term, he's a pussy chaser. He is someone that doesn't care about...
He likes to smash.
Like, generally, if you actually look at his relationships, 50% of them, he doesn't really care about the women he's sleeping with. He's just in it for the sex itself, the hunt itself.
I mean...
Like, he doesn't realize that, but it's very obvious.
I feel like, though, with his enhanced senses, it's more about, does this woman sound and smell really good? And I think if they sound and smell good enough, he will hit it.
Yeah, and so...
It doesn't matter if they, have a family. Or
yeah, exactly. And that's the thing. When it comes down to
a murdering ninja.
Yeah, exactly.
A murdering spy. Like, he's just, the senses like it.
A heroin addict.
Yeah.
Like all this.
Daddy like.
Yeah. And so in this situation, now without the, for lack of a better term, distraction of being a costumed hero, the bad choices he made when it comes to love life get even worse. He's attracted to a woman that runs a bookstore that he goes into. She happens to be married to the son of the head of the Libris family, which has basically been the controlling mob of Hell's Kitchen since the Kingpin has become mayor of New York. And that leads to a very sordid affair where in the end, you're eventually going to see that Matt Murdock is a dick. And that's the thing. Matt Murdock is such a complex character because the hero of Daredevil is like a representative of like righteousness. But Matt Murdock himself struggles with even having good morals on the day-to-day. And the relationship he has with Mindy is an example of this as the story progresses.
For someone with his powers, though, he's so often using these enhanced senses to hunt or to prosecute or free from prosecution. He's always using his powers in ways to sort of detect people's crimes or their lies. You have to consider as well, if you had those powers, they'd be really fun to use for sex too. I mean, and he seems to understand that he needs to find pleasure somewhere. Does he always make good choices? Absolutely not.
No.
But it makes him more relatable. Because many
totally, yeah.
superheroes, you think, God, if I had those powers, I would do some things with them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think,
he really, really does. Yeah.
And I think also when you read other superheroes, when you read like Peter Parker or like Captain America, you might go, oh man, they have some hard lives that they have to do stuff. But look how amazing their life is. When I look at Matt Murdock, when I look at his personal life, I go, God, man, he's such an interesting character, but I would never want to be him because he's got way too many bad things going on in his life, and he's never really trying to correct them. And that's what really makes him stand out compared to other heroes. The other heroes, they're very much always trying to live personally what they're trying to project publicly. Whereas he has always been like, I'm projecting it publicly. I don't really have to worry about it personally. Personally, I'm just going to do what feels right. But at the same time, not even realizing that on a conscious level, because he is very self-righteous when you talk to him. But if you look at his own personal life, he doesn't really practice what he preaches.
He's a sad Batman who fucks a bit more. He needs a little more therapy. Maybe?
No, but like that's the thing, though. The reason why I've never bought the sad Batman thing is that it's like, well, if you actually look at Batman, Batman's sad. But Batman doesn't talk about anything except being Batman. Daredevil really doesn't talk about being Daredevil. He talks a lot about being Matt Murdock. He's more honest with the self-centeredness. The Batman is self-centered. As much as, you know, he likes to think, I'm doing this for everybody else, he's really just doing it for him. Daredevil is more honest to himself in the sense that I'm doing this for me.
And it's a compulsion.
Yeah.
So even when he puts down the cowl, he's still, you know, sitting at home alone in his apartment, calling in every crime he hears.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
That was probably like the saddest panel.
Yeah, when he's like, I can't be Daredevil anymore, but I can at least tell people about, oh, there's an assault on this street and there's that.
But we've already acknowledged all the way through the story up to that point how useless the cops are. So,
yeah,
you know, maybe if you're lucky, 10% of those people are getting help.
That brings us to the introduction of one of the characters that was my favorite supporting character of last year, Detective Cole North.
He's drawn almost like he's giving me strong Ricky Whittle energy. For anybody who's watched American Gods, looks a lot like him. If they were going to make this into a TV show on the new Disney Plus.
Oh yeah, no, I can see that. Cole North, to me, he was the most compelling supporting character of 2019 in comic books because much like Daredevil, he's driven by a conviction that kind of clouds him from everything else around him. He is so dead set on shutting down costume vigilantes in New York because of what's happened in his personal past. He's not noticing the stuff right in front of him about all the corruption happening within the police force he's just transferred into. And because of that, he becomes a target, not just by the mob, but also from his own fellow officers. And he's so dead set on taking out Daredevil that eventually him and Matt Murdock have to form a partnership, in a sense, just to keep Cole North alive. Because there's so many people on the force, they want to make it look like he was accidentally killed here and there. And so it's a very interesting kind of dynamic. He eventually has to go to the one man that he's dead set on bringing in to help him through things. And it's an uneasy alliance that was actually a lot of fun to read and is continuing to happening in the comics. But I want to step away from that a minute and talk about, I think the most important part of the story is the duality between Daredevil and Kingpin. Now, that's something that's been played with by writers for years, and Chip does an amazing job in this because this is the first time where he's playing with the duality of two men breaking down. One man who's at the bottom, which is Matt Murdock, who's like, he's lost everything and he's breaking down. And one man at the top who gained everything he wanted, power, fame. He's now the mayor of New York City, and he's at the top, and it's now revealed to him that the top is not the top, that there's a higher level that he didn't even know about. And that level of someone challenging his authority in a way where they're not scared, they're not trying to be brave and strong or anything, they're just being very matter of fact, like you are under our heel, that causes him to break down in a way that I haven't seen the Kingpin break down in comics, I don't think ever.
And it just shows if you have your focus only on one thing, in the case of Kingpin being so focused on Daredevil for so long, you kind of forget
how the rest of the world works.
Is going on around you, yeah.
We get such an interesting three-dimensional Wilson Fisk. He's not just this villain on the hill sort of thing. He's not just this force of nature. He is somebody who is really trying to deal with his own past trauma and is doing it in a way that I think is kind of reminiscent of like a petulant child. It's weird. I've always loved Wilson Fisk. I always thought Kingpin is such an amazing character, very cool in the sense that it's like classic mob boss sort of thing. Always was a nice foil for Daredevil, but in this is the first time I feel sympathy for Wilson Fisk because he bought into his own lie, and now that lie is unraveling, and he just doesn't know how he can handle it.
Sort of similar to D'Onofrio's portrayal in the TV show.
Yeah, very similar. Yeah.
There's moments where you empathize with Kingpin much more than you should.
Yeah.
Because he's just straight up not a good person. Like, there's always, you have, an issue or a couple of issues where you get the justification or something happens to them. But Kingpin's just straight trash as a human.
Oh, no, totally.
And still, I feel like he's a more interesting Kingpin in this run than he is in others, where he's just sort of this looming figure that is pulling the strings or trying to torture. I think in this one, he actually has introspective moments.
No, totally.
And doesn't always lash out with violence. When he's interrupted in an act of violence by one of his minions, and he has a reflective moment instead of immediately lashing out. I just kept waiting that whole rest of the issue for him to do something really violent or just, smash Minion's head in. But no, it seemed to have sort of twigged something in him of, I'm changing. And instead of lashing out against it with rage, he decided to explore that. So still terrible person, but more interesting, I would say, in this run than he is normally. Yeah,
it's also kind of fun because Chip has introduced these kind of higher, almost like Illuminati type villains of these people, the country club set who really run the world sort of deal and who are running basically New York State, not just New York City, but New York State. That because of that, every other quote unquote villain can there's room for this type of sympathy. And I think that sympathy is also given to Izzy Libris, who's the head of the Libris crime family, which of course gets Hell's Kitchen after Wilson Fisk becomes mayor of New York City. They are in a tough spot the entire time. Izzy is I'd say probably a 65-year-old woman, somewhere around there. Someone who became the capo of her mob family, not because people wanted her to, but because there was nobody else to do it. And she's built this reputation. But now, because of the uncertainness of the New York crime scene, because the Owl is kind of trying to take up spots that he's never taken up before, trying to play outside the rules of the mob families, her power is being threatened on a regular basis. She's almost assassinated a number of times. She makes an alliance with Hammerhead. Hammerhead basically screws her over and goes, now you're working for me. And it's weird to be like this evil crime boss who's obviously like her and her sons have killed many people throughout Hell's Kitchen by either physical means or by the use of drugs. And you're sitting there going, oh, she's going to lose her mob family.
That glass ceiling, y'all.
Yeah.
It's hard out there for a woman.
I am fascinated with the fact that Chip has done a really good job of bringing sympathy to almost every character in this story, where you can actually sit there and go, oh, that sucks because of this for them.
And it helps offset the whole woe is me of Daredevil as well, because he's not the only one suffering or conflicted or feeling maybe trapped by a position they've taken or their role. Like, everyone's got problems, kind of. Like, get over yourself, Matt.
No, totally.
You're not the only one that's going through it.
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of been a reoccurring statement that a number of characters have said to Matt during this story in their own words, totally. And so now, in recent issues, the addition of Elektra and the fact that Elektra and Matt Murdock, Elektra and Daredevil are kind of possibly an item again. But in this world, because of something that happened during Charles Soule's run, nobody remembers that Daredevil is Matt Murdock unless he's now told them. So Elektra, although being the former girlfriend and remembering that she was the former girlfriend of Daredevil, still doesn't remember who Daredevil really is. So there's a lot of mass sex in this. It's like, Petula hasn't gone this far, but now she's like, oh, I'm definitely going to read now.
I'm interested.
Yeah.
I kind of like that Matt's not super monogamous, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the first issue starts off with him picking up at a bar.
Yeah.
Yeah. Drawn by a lower back tattoo. I mean, he likes to hit it.
He does. Yes, he does.
And then hit it somewhere else. So yeah, no, I'm definitely excited to keep reading this series. I like that Matt sort of moves between getting that he's not the only one suffering in the center of the universe, but then still having his persecution complex.
Right.
And ultimately he does want to help, but he's not always good at it. And he definitely, I'd say more than a lot of the other heroes, because he lives where he works, determined the development industry's dog fooding, like using your own products. He definitely has to see upfront more of the consequences of his fuck ups, which I also like, because other people can just fly away, where he has to, you know, get up and go to work, you know, across the street from a liquor store that he let burn down, or, you know, be the parole officer for the brother of someone he murdered. Like, these are problems that he has.
Yeah.
They've
really leaned into the complexity of the character in this, and this is one of my favorite runs. I think when it's all over, it's going to, you know, be up there with the Frank Miller run and the Bendis run and the Brubaker run and the Ann Nocenti run. I think it will stand the test of time and be up there with all these great runs in the Daredevil universe.
And if they were to ever revive the television version of Daredevil on the new streaming network, I would love if even some of it was based on this storyline.
Yeah, no, totally. It's great stuff, definitely. So yeah, check it out at your local comic shop. The first 2 story arcs are available in trade. Issue-wise, I think issue 17 will be out probably by the time you hear this episode. Check it out. It is some great work. It is probably some of the best work that Chip Zdarsky has done at Marvel. And he's done some pretty damn good work. So definitely check it out. And of course, the artwork by Marco Cicchetto for most of the issues is pretty damn good.
Gorgeous.
So we've come to the end of the episode. Petula, where can people find you?
Online at innovative.com. On Twitter at Obesacantavit, OBESACANTAVIT, and here with you.
There you go. And of course, you can find everything I do at geekhardshow.com. This has been Back Issue Bloodbath. I've been Andrew Young.
I've been Petula Neal.
Have yourself a good